A man throws an apple at you. What do? Yell "I'm not a doctor." Catch it, eat it, then thank him. Throw it back at him, harder and from a shorter distance and aiming for his crotch. Catch it and then we get married. This post only exists to hopefully get one post karma so I can use a subreddit that requires it. Make lemonade. Punch him in the duck. If life gives you apples, make cider. Create the concept of gravity. Try to catch it. Catch it and offer a game of catch. Ask him if he thinks he's Mrs. Doubtfire. Catch it and throw it in the air as he shoots an arrow through it. All as William Tell plays in the background. Throw it back at him, aiming the butt, but failing miserably because my aiming is terrible. Eat it. Block it with my horse. Throw it back at him. Discover gravity. Throw it back. Try to duck in order to avoid being hit. Eat it. Demand that it's turned into a pie. Catch it, wash it and eat it. Now that Reddit are killing third-party apps on July 1st, what are great alternatives to Reddit? I might get back into reading books after over a decade. r/tildes is the only Reddit alternative I've found that actually has a decent user base, quality and moderation. The community is still small, but it really reminds me of Reddit back in the day, where there were a lot of interesting people from very diverse backgrounds posting cool things that I never would have seen otherwise. It's invite only, but they have a mega thread you can post to and get access pretty easily if you have an active Reddit account. For context, Usenet is still there, and will welcome you back. After 43 years of activity, the same flame wars are still burning. I've exclusively used Reef since ATL East 2012. Real sad about this one. People who have no child. Why? All my friends and family have kids, so I've spent years seeing what parenthood is really like. Plus they pretty much all tell me that as much as they love their kids, parenthood is brutal and thankless. I used to want loads of kids. Now I'm super glad I have none and I never plan to have any. A. I've never wanted to be pregnant. B. I don't want to be responsible for anyone but myself. I don't even have pets or houseplants. C. I don't like children. I haven't yet been in a position in my life where having a child was a good idea desired by both me and a partner. 1. I don't want to saddle a child with my mental health issues. 2. I don't want to bring a child into this fucking dystopia we're all just politely pretending isn't on the verge of disaster. Just don't want them, never did. And having them just cause everyone else does, is the worst reason of all to have kids. Wedding photographers of Reddit. What was your "they're not gonna last long" moment? I'm a videographer and the groom called me a couple days after the wedding. He wanted me to make sure I didn't include any footage of him checking out the women at the wedding. No joke? I recognized the groom from a grinder. These stories are making me feel good about my own marriage, which is nice. So many to choose from. 2 that immediately come to mind. Groom would not make any eye contact with the bride. So many photos where she is gazing lovingly at him, and he's just like 10-yard stare right over the top of her head. Was a tough edit. Groom's speech included a line about how opposite he is from his bride because her friends have never even been to Paris. What are you convinced people are just pretending to hate? Anything that has an annoying or overly fanatic fanbase. People tend to hate on the thing itself, but really they just hate the fanbase. All this console war stuff that's been happening since Atari vs. Intellivision. They don't really hate the other console. Likely they've never even used the other one more than an hour, maybe if that. The only reason a war is even perpetuated is because no one wants to feel like a chump for spending $400 picking this one over that one. So they make believe theirs is the better one when in reality it's the same fucking thing with a different logo. The word moist. It's not that damn bad. Now using the phrase "not done cooking" in reference to a human being, on the other hand. Reddit. Because they're all still on here posting like it's nothing. What do you think is the most toxic subreddit? Kinda unknown one, but r/team. They literally don't allow people to rate the women above like a 6.5. It's theorized this is done because the mods incels want women's self-esteem to be lowered so they can white knight them, or just out of jealous revenge for being rejected. There's several stories of women posting and soon after getting DMs telling them they're actually really good looking. Read this and tell me you don't get douche chills. r/team. Baffled that anyone would subject themselves to a bunch of anonymous incels emboldened by a loose grasp of physiology and facial metrics. Am I the asshole? Karma farming echo chamber for hilariously fake posts. If you don't agree with the mob, they will tear you to shreds. Most political subreddits. This is Reddit. ALL. Female dating strategy. What gets an immediate fuck no from you? A Friday afternoon meeting request. Let's schedule a meeting when it should definitely just be an email. Necrophilia. Want to insert a toy into your urethra? Influencers or bellends that were on some bullshit realty show peddling their wares. Corporate begging from every business a person visits. Would you like to round up to $1 for the Rando Douchebag Initiative Foundation? Forgive your abuser. Surprise visitors. It's the best when it's the end of a long week and you get home to find a surprise visitor just waiting for you. Fuck that shit. It's been a long ass week, I literally just pulled into my driveway and I have groceries to put away. Don't just be showing up announced, it's freaking rude. Grown-ass people resorting to toddler behavior, screaming, throwing tantrums, etc. Animal abuse. Anything flying that stings, bites and hornets are an additional level of absolutely the fuck not. Working in hot and humid weather. What horror movie has the best ending? Someone else mentioned The Thing, so I'll go with a lesser-known gem called The Skeleton Key. Really hopeless and despair-inducing ending, worth the watch. The Descent. Original version, not the horrible American theater version. The Thing, Rosemary's Baby has a really great ending, emo. As Above So Below. That Sewer Great Part 3 me for a loop. The Sixth Sense. A lot of Reddit is probably too young to remember the phenomenon that the ending of this movie caused, but I still remember being in the theater and hearing some guy in the back shout "no fucking way" at the ending reveal to this movie. Still cracks me up. The Others. Ultimate twist. Ready or Not, was really not expecting that at the end. I started laughing my ass off. I thought it was gonna be the typical ending of they were all just nuts. All the movies on this list are good endings too. What is one of the best examples of mass hysteria? When LA's power blacked out in 1994 due to an earthquake, the city's 911 call centers were inundated with calls about an alien invasion. That was the first time most of the people in LA had seen the Milky Way galaxy, and they didn't know what to make of it, so they assumed it had to be an alien invasion. During the invasion of Saipan in WWLL, the civilian population willingly jumping to their deaths, because the Japanese government told them the Americans would commit unimaginable horrors upon them. COVID caused everyone to buy all the toilet paper in the world despite no asshole issues being a side effect of COVID. Would anyone who has ever played D&D like to comment on the satanic panic? Has to be the time people in Strasbourg just danced for weeks until they dropped dead. The Salem Witch Trials, 1692 to 1693. What is your secret that you can't tell anyone because it will probably ruin your life? I don't give my best at work because I don't care anymore. I used to give them 100 and nobody noticed and only focused on the small mistakes I made. Now I get 40-50 and my manager keeps bugging why my performance has dropped compared to before. I simply don't care. The salary is fine compared to the country's standard, but in this field of work is on the lower end of the chart. I don't care. I'm overworked and underpaid by industry standard, not countrywide standard. I find it incredibly difficult to care about absolutely anything. Gotta fake it just enough so that people will interact with me. My brother is the product of a rape. My mom told me. I don't know if she told him. She's passed away now. I found out I had a half-brother from dad, and the only reason I found out about it was because he had leukemia, and they thought I'd be a match for a blood marrow transfusion. What's something odd you find attractive? When guys get embarrassed, I think it's looking tired. I'm very happy to see how many people here notice the uniqueness of different noses. I've always thought that nose as the central part of face adds a lot of character. It's the part of face which makes it interesting. I've met a lot of girls complaining about their noses and thinking about surgery, and it just breaks my heart. So, answering the question, I would say noses which are not necessarily beautiful in a classical way. Seeing someone at a restaurant or a movie by themselves. That kind of confidence is sexy. Pointed canines. People who are able to sit in silence comfortably. That don't feel the need to always fill the void with chatter. Don't get me wrong, I love a good conversation, but not everything needs to be said. If she works in a bookstore, her attractiveness level triples. I can't explain it. What's the most disturbing secret you've discovered about someone close to you? The amount of comments highlighting sexual abuse is grossly disheartening. I hope those who survive such things find healing in the midst of piecing things together. An uncle beat a guy almost to death with his bare hands. He had walked in on a friend molesting a kid. He had to pay a fine and do community service for a long time, but also didn't have to pay for beer at the local bar for a few months. He was so reserved and kind, so it threw me when I found out what he'd accomplished in his younger years. The reason Grandma moved away, when my dad was still a baby, to a big city, more than 3 days away from her family, was because she stabbed her stepfather and almost killed him. It was a very small village. Later she told me he was a rapist. She didn't elaborate on that and I didn't ask any follow-up questions. She ended the convo with "I did the right thing." We never met her side of the family. What's the worst possible reply to "I'm pregnant"? Are you sure it's yours? On purpose? Different scenario, but a co-worker of mine a while ago was smoking on her break and a lady came up to her and said, "That's bad for the baby." My coworker replied, "It's alright, I'm not keeping it anyway." She wasn't pregnant. Skull. Someone asked me, "So you just decided to keep it and see if it works out?" How my coworker's boyfriend responded, "Oh. Makes sense, you're a bit more of a cunt than usual lately." My sister told my parents she was pregnant. She had been married for a couple of years at this point. My dad said, "What did you go and do that for?" My mom started to cry and said, "Why are you trying to make me seem so old? You have the wrong number." Got a random call from a woman once who, while crying, told me she was pregnant. I awkwardly told her she had the wrong number. And she hung up. "You know, I just got a vasectomy." "I thought you were just getting fat." Why can't cashiers have chairs? Because America hates low-paid workers. When I was an attendant at a gym, I was asked this by a lawyer and so responded with what my boss told me. "Sitting looks unprofessional." He retorted with, "My entire job takes place from comfortable chairs, so I guess you're more of a professional." He was a cool guy and actually brought it up to the manager at some point. Night shift got chairs. As an introvert, I fucking love Aldi. Get in, pay for your shit, go the hell home. I don't know. Why can't cashiers have chairs? They do in Europe. Woman shrugging. They have chair stools here in the Netherlands. Why do you Americans make life so hard for each other? Because it's unprofessional. Ergonomically standing might be better anyway. I doubt they would provide a very good chair. They do in first world countries. I think they want the cashiers to stay alert. If they are sitting, they may tend to let their attention wander,